Now the change comes here. The happy elements are changed through as Scrooge changes himself. He becomes older. It points out he's not become who he is now, but there are the signs of care and avarice, greed, that seems to be changing him physically. And that's a key point here, that he's described as changing physically. The physical appearance of him and other people all the way through seems to be being linked to their inner self as well. Here we meet Belle. Her eyes, even though she's mourning and she's crying, sparkle in the light. So her essential goodness is there even in the sadness of what she's doing. She speaks to him softly. She speaks to him gently, even though she's letting him down and she's upset. She goes in and points out that this engagement that becomes clear that there is between them is not the right thing now, pointing out that he has changed. When it was made, you're another man. So noting the idea of change. But to her, the change is just from one man into another. From him, it's from a boy to a man, and he feels impatient to have to point that out. She's very, very eloquent, though, and points out, when she says, I can release you, he says, do I want that? Because he never actually says, I agree with you, never actually pleads for her to come back or to change her mind. He just seems to stand there and take what she's saying. She explains it much more clearly to him, and again, as I said, very eloquently, pointing out that one of the problems is that they would not actually get together now because he weighs everything by gain. This is very much the Scrooge. He's kind of growing into the Scrooge that we know of now. She's saying basically, you wouldn't choose me now. And basically, he doesn't deny that. We notice even then he's about to retort to her, but he chooses not to afterwards, almost as though he can't do so because of the lie that will be coming here. Before she finishes off by incredible generosity of spirit in basically wishing him the best. There's no bitterness, which there could easily have been. However, at the same time, it's also worth noting something we've seen before, the idea that she is saying to him that this is a choice that he can be. This greatly upsets Scrooge, obviously, this thing with Belle, but he is forced to see something more. We see that strength of the ghost coming in, forcing him to observe the next part here. He cannot escape in what goes on. So what we get into is this detail of Belle's later life. It's basically this is what it could have been for you, Scrooge. And the way it's described is that down here we get an awful lot of use of the voice of the narrator. We've mentioned him before, but he comes in and points out how much he would have loved to have been there, how he would have behaved if he was there, that kind of an idea. So he puts himself into the action to make, I suppose, us see that this craziness of children running everywhere is not necessarily a bad thing. What we get instead is a picture of the fun that's to be had with lots of children around. When, over the page, the father comes in, we get very clearly that comparison. Scrooge is more attentive than ever when he comes in. Why? Because that could have been him. What he's being forced to see is what he threw away. And that's made even worse when then Belle's husband and Belle turn around and, in laughter, again, notice, both of them laughing together, discuss the fact that Scrooge, at that point with his choice, is sat with his partner on the point of death, quite alone in the world, but working at that same point. Scrooge's voice, like Scrooge, is broken at this point. He's been broken by it, and he actually ends up physically not quite assaulting the ghost, but being physical with it to try and force it away from what else, from having to deal with what he's done. He pushes the extinguisher cap down on it, presses it on its head. It does disappear, but he can't hide the light. Now it's out. He cannot escape it. And when the ghost disappears, he's just left exhausted and traumatized.